Hello, Europe East teachers of K-5 Mathematics. This is Sarah Benjamin, and I'm just doing a short tutorial video on how to access and utilize some of the remote and blended learning resources that have been consolidated and compiled for you as choices to support your daily math instruction while you're in a remote environment. These can also be used when we return to brick and mortar as well through blended learning. So let's get started. When coming in to access these resources, there's a couple of places you can go. I'm going to start with the Europe East Elementary Math website for teachers. I'm going to come in and I'm going to click on the Remote and Blended Resources for Teachers on the left-hand navigation bar. That will bring you to kind of our starting spot for these resources. At the top, the first section is Remote Resources for Teachers. This is where you'll access for yourself. Down below, there's a little bit of information in terms of the district guidance on daily math instruction during remote learning. Again, that has links to these two websites I'm going to preview, as well as a description of the remote frameworks and priority standards, opportunities for spiraling practice, what should a routine lesson look like following that 20-60-20, how to balance group size, assessment, etc., and some examples. When you're looking at this as well, thinking about assessments, come over to our next option. We have a tutorial video on how to access and use the blended learning math assessments that are aligned to our district assessment plan. This includes your unit check-ins, CEPAs, and end-of-unit assessments. So you can access and learn how to use those blended resources here. Those are created for you. Shout out to our amazing math coach team who's worked tirelessly to support teachers across the district with all of these resources. Scrolling down then, we also have Math at Home. These are designed as websites with student-friendly versions of many of our resources for parents to use at home. We'll look at those again in just a few minutes. And then there's information on our remote learning frameworks. We're going to look at one as an example, but I want to just share that we have a mini PD available. What is a remote learning framework? How is it different than our normal learning frameworks? And how can I access those? These are available with a single click for your grade level that you can access and know what's the focus and priority standards while we're in remote learning. Scrolling down again, there's some guidance on using math manipulatives, Think Central how-tos, including assigning the ebook, and then at the very bottom, there's virtual manipulative collections tailored to K2 or to 3-5 that you are welcome to download and use in your own Seesaw or Google Classroom. All right, let's go back to the top. I'm going to share with one grade level so you get a sense of the resources. They're similar for all grade levels. I'll start with 4th grade. I can access my resources by either clicking on the link under Teacher Support or coming over to the navigation bar and clicking on 4th grade here and then picking the specific unit that I'm focused on. I'm going to go to 4th grade and open up kind of the starting spot for this. It gives me a description of what I'm going to find on each page, which we'll go into in just a few minutes. This is at a minimum. To go to the actual unit itself, then you come to the bottom and click on that unit. So let's take a look at Unit 4. So each unit platform is set up in the same way. You have the title of the unit at the top, how many days is intended for instruction. The student-friendly version, this is a link to that Math at Home website so that you can send this home for parents. This includes the newsletter, a how-to video for students on using the ebook, some internet technology links, and the virtual manipulatives. It also has some unplugged options that people could use when we're trying to get kids off of computers, but still focused on a little bit of math learning. And then at the bottom, it will be organized by week following the remote learning framework. You'll have 3 choices, and teachers could then use this without loading anything to their digital classrooms if they chose, with the link to the specific Go Math lessons and practice sets for each, some rich task problem-solving sets for each, and then a game break. Okay, so we'll look at those resources in a minute, but this is how you might send it home to make it easy and accessible to your parents. Once you're on here, it's easy to navigate for a grade level to different units. Same thing. scrolls down. This one's equivalent fractions, but you'll see that those resources are similar throughout. Okay, so that's our math at home. Coming back to the teacher, we are moving on from this math at home link, and I'm going to scroll down now. The second section shows, again, what are the choices in terms of resources that are available. And we have a direct copy to your remote learning framework. You'll know this is remote because obviously it's got a watermark that says remote. In here, though, there's one major difference that's really important to understand. The stage 1 and stage 2 are exactly the same as our regular frameworks. What's different is that in the remote framework in stage 3, there's a week focus. This is how we're structuring resources. So week 1 for each grade level will follow the focus of that week and then align to the I can statements below. So this 3-week unit has a specific focus for each week. This is how we will stand up resources for you. In addition, at the bottom, there are direct links to many additional opportunities online for things that you can use for instruction, as well as links to these different choices at the bottom. So there's a few extra things in here that you might not see in your regular framework. Pay special attention to the rationale and notes. That gives you a really good kind of at a glance, quick thing to look at in terms of what might be some priorities for instruction aligned to each of those I can statements. So with that in mind, each week will have that focus. Let's go ahead and close this up again and come down and look at what a week looks like. So week 1 for this grade level is I can add and subtract fractions. What you're going to find then are 2 example synchronous face-to-face lessons. So there's the first one, and then there's the second one. We can change that title. And then some problem-solving tasks, some on your own from Go Math, and a game break. These 3 resources here, the problem-solving, on your own, and game break, are also loaded to that student at home. Let's go through these just really quickly. So you're going to have a synchronous lesson that also has some additional practice in there as well. There are notes inside of these, but it's really a lesson that can walk you straight through a getting started entrance task, some vocabulary and a focused learning target, some teaching opportunities with some linked resources that are appropriate. I'm just scrolling through some try-its for kids, and finally an exit ticket. So each lesson kind of follows that same framework, and then will be followed by some on your own practice. So teachers might do that first part as part of their synchronous and then assign these asynchronous digital practice on your own. Maybe just one problem, maybe choose a problem. Really, it's up to teachers to decide what makes sense there for them. So a couple of extra problems to choose from. Your problem-solving tasks, these are pulled from typically extra CEPAs and the rich tasks, and they are loaded, ready for you to use. These could also be used for a lesson. They could be used and assigned to kids later. There's just a lot of choices there, okay? In the Go Math choice, you're going to have the lessons that are aligned to those I can statements for that focus for the week. So for example, this was add and subtract fractions. There were 3 Go Math lessons aligned. You'll have a jump slide that will allow you to jump to a specific lesson. In that lesson then, there are differentiated problems over on the left side. For kids who need a little bit more support, the math coach and the Math ISS team have vetted these problems and are recommending 5 problems for kids who might need a little bit of extra scaffolding or support. The kids who are on level but just need to practice a little bit have a blend of that scaffolded but also some problem solving. And then those kids that are really ready for a challenge have at least the 2 quick check choices, which are the checks that we use to make sure kids are hitting at least meeting the standard, and then they'll have a bigger focus on the problem solving from there. So that's going to happen, followed by if you chose to use it, assigning the Think Central to complete. And then it just follows for each of the other lessons. So this is already done a little bit of possible choices for you. One important thing to note is that with these problem-solving sets, You're also able to come down and pick a Jamboard. So if you chose to teach this through Jamboard, you can click for all of the Schoology problem solving sets. You can click here and it will force you to make a copy that you'll add to your drive. Let this happen really quick, just take a second. And from there you have a Jamboard that you could use to load through your Google Classroom, to use as a whole group math lesson as well, whatever works for you. Each of the Jamboards is set up with the first slide that's blue as the teacher slide with some just additional suggestions. And then following that are actual work maths for students. Each one has been set up with 10. If you need to create additional, you just come in and duplicate and it will add another one. If you need to delete one, because you only need 5, for example, you just click on the one you want to delete and delete it. So those are easy to use, and you can find those then in your Jamboard section. The last resource that's going to be available to you each week is the game break. So this is a choice board that has been set up with the idea of doing both spiral, fluency, and on standard focus for the week. Students will have a choice and are recommended to do at least one game in each column. For example, the first column for 4th grade is focused on their fluency standard 4 and BT4, where kids are learning to add and subtract using the standard algorithm. The middle column is focused on the focus skill for that week. And then the final column on the right is focused on important spiral practice from units earlier in the year. And so we're going back and visiting some multiplication division here. For each of these, kids just simply click on the picture and it will jump them to the specific game with the directions. If there's a virtual manipulative, it will be there as well, etc. And then they can click on the back to game slides here. So it's just easy to navigate between each of these choices. Okay, but they're really just set up there. And again, this is loaded on the parent website as well. So that is a quick preview of all of the resources that are available to you. You have them on the teacher website. You have them on that student at home website that you would need to do very little to prepare and have these available. And then one final place that you have them is in DoDEA Schoology. These you can download and adapt. I will say that inside of if you want to use the Pear Deck add-on when you're working with this, you can absolutely do that for for the slide decks. You just need to come in, click on the unit, and then download a copy. That'll keep the Pear Deck add-on. If you're not going to use Pear Deck and you just want the straight slides, you'll come to Schoology, go to Groups, that Europe East Integrated Resources, come over to Resources, Math, and the Digital Learning Plan support is at the top. Navigate by grade level, and unit again, week, and all of the resources are there for you to use in any way, shape, or form that makes sense for you and your students. You might actually open the problem-solving tasks and just use one. You may use a single Jamboard. You might take a couple slides from a lesson and adapt them to include with some other lesson pieces of your own. So really, this is just a set of curated resources and tools for you that should support your students and their learning during this time of blended and remote learning. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out to the math coach in your school or the Math ISS team. We're here to help.